Welcome to the fifth meeting of the 46th year of the Rotary Club of Dublin and Worthington. I want to welcome each and every one of you to another virtual meeting. And I think we have an excellent meeting in store for you. To begin with, we will have our opening invocation and Pledge of Allegiance from past President Al Wu, who did also an excellent job last week as our speaker. So thank you, Al, for stepping up here today.
Let us pray. Father, we ask that you enlighten our minds with truth, inflame our hearts with love, inspire our will with courage, enrich our lives with service, pardon what we have been, sanctify who we are, order what we shall be, and thine shall be the glory and salvation through you. In your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Al. Next, we want to introduce any guests that we may have here. Steve, do we have any guests or
yes,
Rotarians or others?
I believe we have one guest aside from our speaker, who the speaker will be introduced later by, I believe, Joe Patchen. But our guests, we have Christy. I can't believe I got a 50-50 shot on this. Guggle? Christy, are you there? Can you say hi to us? If you're on mute, we can't hear you.
I know Christy's here and she must be on mute, and I'd just like to say hey to her. She is my invite group.
Wonderful. Thank you for inviting her. And I think that's all we have for guests. So I think let's go to happy dollars. Does anybody have a happy dollar? Shout them out if you got them, or post in the chat.
I will start, and I know you guys are going to be so thrilled. But my nephew's Will just moved into his dorm at OU, University of Oklahoma, this weekend, and it was a little, because it was such a he kind of got looked out because the dorm he in is also the athlete dorm. So he's got a suite and chefs for his meals. So he's like a perfect Oklahoma, freshman experience.
Nice.
So he's there in my.
Great. Does anybody else have any happy dollars?
I might have one.
Go for it, Joe.
I say might because I am ambivalent about whether I'm happy about this, but I think I am. So both of our kids are in band at Thomas Worthington, and we have just learned that they will have their season. And I'm particularly happy about the part that parents will be allowed in the stands, but not students. That will make a very interesting football season this fall. For band parents, I think that might be okay. That's my ambivalent happiness.
Sure. Nice. Kip, did you have a happy dollar, or were you just giving a thumbs up to Ann?
No, I do.
Okay.
I'm a census collector, and my first visit this morning was to a homeless camp, and I am so delighted that there was no one present.
Oh, that's great. Where were they?
just north of the fairgrounds. If you know where the parking for campers is, Council
Yeah.
Avenue tracks.
Wonderful.
And it was vacant, thank heavens.
Anybody else?
We do.
I don't see any more. So go ahead, Jim.
Now, we do have a couple of announcements that we'll be posting on the website. One is that we've been contacted and asked to encourage folks to help with the upcoming election. Franklin County poll workers are really needed, and with the number having become of older workers having become reluctant to move forward with volunteering, they're in definite need, as we've seen in the news all over the United States. But we'll post on our in the newsletter and the information needed to contact them. The second actually comes from two organizations, the Ohio State University and the Worthington Community Relations Commission. And they're having a forum that will be this weekend on Saturday, August 22nd, on the making of metropolitan inequality, the role of suburbs in creating that equality. And it is sponsored by the Kirwan Institute for Study of Race and Ethnicity at Ohio State, and will specifically address the issues as they relate to the city of Worthington. The Worthington Community Relations Commission is also sponsoring this event. So it will be on Zoom. We will post it again in the newsletter, which will come out on Friday. And both of those things, I think, are very important issues that we're facing as a community. So now, I'd like to introduce Joe Patchen, who will introduce our speaker. Joe?
Thank you, Jim. I'm delighted to introduce Michelle Moskowitz-Brown, who is the Executive Director of Local Matters. She and her family are good friends of ours as well, so I'm doubly happy. But I'm most pertinent fact is I'm happy that you're going to have an interesting experience hearing about what Local Matters does. And it is a not-for-profit that deals with food insecurity and issues around healthy food in our community. And the person best suited to explaining what that all is here with us. So without further ado, Michelle Moskowitz-Brown.
Thank you so much, Joe. It's great to be with you all here today. I appreciate that we can still connect over Zoom, and I know we're all finding ways to keep our conversations going. So I'm grateful to be here and thankful for all of the work that you're doing in our community and in your neighborhoods. I think I'm going to be sharing my screen. So if we want to go ahead and do that, I can get started with some slides, but essentially, sounds like I think I can just go ahead and try that. So I'll do that in a minute. But before I do, my goal is that, as Joe said, you'll understand the work that Local Matters is doing to address food insecurity and diet-related disease across Columbus and our region, and that you'll have an opportunity to ask me any questions about the food system. If I don't know the answer, I'll find it for you. You know, whether it's about retail, restaurants, grocery stores, food banks, all of that, I'm happy to entertain. And also we'll address some of the changes for Local Matters, but my slides are really grounded in the work that we always do in our mission, but there certainly have been some changes, a lot of changes since COVID-19. So I will address that to some extent, but you'll notice just some foundational work in the slides that may be different today. So I'll share more about that as we go. And I'm going to attempt here to share my screen. Thumbs up if you can see my slide.
Yep, it looks great.
Great, and you can hear me, so just give me a wave if you can't. So again, I'm Michelle Moskowitz-Brown, Executive Director at Local Matters. I've been here, I've been in Columbus for 10 years, and I've been at Local Matters for about a little bit over 9. And I'm going to start actually rewinding a little bit to a little bit more about my story. I've been in nonprofit work for 24 years. In management, largely my first 15 years in my hometown of New York. And like I said, here for 10 years. And I'm just going to take it a little bit further back for our first slide. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. This is a picture of where I grew up. It's on the left, the housing projects in Canarsie, Brooklyn. Claim to fame from those projects is Howard Schultz, the former CEO, is also from this development, but about 20 years prior to me. Yeah, that's my grandma on the right in Brighton Beach, and that's me in the middle at Brighton Beach Baths, just for some context setting. And then taking it a little further, just wanted to share a little bit more about my family. In the middle is my husband, Aaron, my daughter, Nora, my son, Max. They're practically grown-ups now and friends with Joe Patchin's kids' ages. We met the Patchins when Aaron and Joe coached soccer together. And on the right is my sister. I kind of joke that I didn't grow up eating any vegetables, but my sister and I both ended up in food. You know, we were on food stamps, and so my mom was a single mom of 3, and we really didn't have a lot of home-cooked meals, but we've been making up for a lot of lost time. My sister's a famous vegan chef, nationally renowned with a couple of restaurants. She makes really great food. And I share my brother on the left. That was on his wedding day. Joe and many never had a chance to meet him because unfortunately he passed away from colon cancer at the age of 27. And we were all, my family, my siblings and I, within 3 years of each other. He was the oldest. So these folks plus my mom are essentially my inspiration for the work that I do and the service that I bring to my work in terms of just appreciating, you know, all the time we have with our loved ones and really just working to give back with, you know, all the skills we can share with the world. So just wanted to share that context with you. And as you think about the work we do at Local Matters, you'll see why these stories really are what drive me on a daily basis. I like to say also about my mom in terms of the perseverance. She went back to school when I went to college to become a nurse, and I really learned a lot from her about that perseverance and also about being generous, you know, no matter what resources you have. So just wanted to give that shout out to Mom, who's actually moving today. She's in Columbus with us as well. So for Local Matters, we were founded in 2008, really around this issue of this current generation of children being predicted to have a shorter lifespan than their parents due to diet-related disease. And then also a belief that everybody has a right to healthy, affordable food and that they should have the skills and resources to prepare that. Of course, understanding that we all have challenges and it's not always easy to get a meal on the table. So just helping people, you know, do what they want to be doing for their families and for themselves, but also always appreciating a good meal out and supporting our restaurants. In terms of the food insecurity numbers, they have really skyrocketed since COVID-19, the pandemic really hit our community. In terms of just, this is a number for Franklin County, but in terms of also racial disparities, food insecurity for Black folks was around 25% nationally before COVID, and it's up to 39%. In the Latino community, it's jumped from 17 to 37%. And for white families, it's moved from 11 to 22%. So clearly, issues that we experienced before have been largely exacerbated in the current pandemic, and more so now that as benefits start to expire for many people who have been able to make ends meet due to those federal benefits they've been receiving. diet-related disease, you know, we don't advocate for one specific diet, but we do know that children are currently experiencing, 33% of them are currently experiencing excess weight that puts them at high risk for diet-related disease, heart disease, you know, diabetes, chronic disease. These are all issues that are diet-related, and that you know, there's an economic benefit, an educational benefit, and even from a military readiness benefit. There's a lot of reasons why, if we can help people eat well and feed their families, we would be in a much better position to be, you know, healthy as a nation. So that's part of our impetus. But when you boil it down, we're essentially trying to create healthy communities through food education, access, and advocacy. And back to that, what gets us up in the morning? We're looking to create a world where everybody has access to a just and sustainable food system, and, as we dare to dream, a world free of food-related chronic disease, starting in our community. This is our home kitchen in the picture here, where I am today on the south side. We're across from Children's Hospital. That's one of our classes. Local Matters values, these continue to be a strength of ours in terms of just how we live out our work every day around advocacy, education, inspiration, collaborative leadership, diversity and inclusion, and celebration. And as you look at the definitions here, we really try to live our values in active ways. So we talk about our values in our staff meetings. We talk about the work that we're doing in our mission moments, because everybody who comes here really brings that passion and I think appreciates being in an organization where we live those values every day. And so we can basically take anything that comes our way in terms of even sort of the acknowledgement of Black Lives Matter and issues of racial disparity. Our team is about 40% African American, and these are issues that we work thoughtfully on in our communities in terms of what types of solutions we help communities build. So that's our values. This is a little bit more about our programming. We essentially have a proprietary curricula for children starting as early as preschool, as well as working with, you know, expecting moms. But we also employ some national curricula. This is the Cooking Matters program. When we work with adults, it's a hands-on course where participants get groceries to take home and recreate the meals that they're making in class. So that's one way to have an effect, a long-term effect on food insecurity. We partner with Ohio Health, with Mary Haven Treatment Center, Poindexter Senior Living, a lot of different groups throughout the community with the Cooking Matters program. The Food Matters program I was mentioning is 24 weeks. So when we're in the classroom, we're really giving kids the tools they need to develop a lifetime of healthy eating habits. We partner largely with Columbus City Schools, a lot of preschools, My Brother's Keeper, and a variety of, I'll share more of our partner list later on. Growing Matters is basically our garden work. You're noticing everything has a matters, which keeps it all together. We manage about 15 community gardens. We usually would be up to about 25 in the summertime, but the recs and parks have been a little less active. So we're generally trying to partner with folks to have a garden wherever our education is taking place. The Veggie Van is a program that we brought back into our community last summer and have really ramped up through the pandemic, because it offers community members a safe, affordable way to access groceries in their community. And we are currently at 5 locations, including the Bible Way Church, Trio Pharmacy, Primary One. We're piloting some work with Central Ohio Transportation Authority, CODA, and Equitas Health. So that is basically a weekly place where people can get groceries. They can order online and pick it up safely. We also have meal kits. So it's kind of like any of those home delivery Blue Apron type of meals that you would get, where you're actually getting a meal for a family of 4 for $10 with all of the ingredients you need, including a spice kit, oils, anything you're going to need, rice, beans for a full meal is in that kit. So that's something that's really grown since the pandemic hit and has taken more of a forefront role in our organization while we can't be in front of students in their schools. We do have online curricula that we're delivering successfully, partly because we're able to get food home to families and their to children and their families, and they're able to cook with us online. So that's been actually a really nice way to connect with families at home. But obviously, we're working less with students because we're not in the schools. We also do this work with corporate partners. So anybody who has a corporate wellness program, we always find that everybody needs this education. So regardless of socioeconomic status, it's a really good way to connect with employees. We also enjoy working with everyone from hourly wage employees to management through the Wellness Matters program. And then we train folks to deliver the work. We're a staff of about 15. We have about a $1.3 million budget, so we can't be everywhere. And so we also find that there are partners in other parts of the state, like ProMedica, like Grandview Schools, who want to do the work. So we're able to train them up to use our curricula, and we offer support for those services. That's one of our ways to expand. This is literally a list of folks we've worked with in the past 18 months. So I hit on a few of them, but as you can see, back to the goal of collaborative leadership and partnership, we pretty much work with everybody. If there's a group that in the social sector or corporate sector or healthcare, our work is really really successful in educational settings, in workplace setting, in the healthcare setting, and I'd say sort of adjacent to also work in recovery is a really big area for us, because our approach is essentially, like I said, everybody needs more skills. We don't have home economics in our schools, so people are really growing up a little bit more separated from how to prepare food, and just, everybody has a shortage of something, whether it's time, it's energy, it's resources, it's patience. So our approach is really adjusting to our audience and really helping people with the skills that they need in particular. So that's a sense of who we work with. Just a quick overview of our strategic plan goals. You could ask me about any of these because I won't go into much detail, but throughout the presentation, I've kind of hit on. We have key programs, but we also are really cognizant of what it means to grow intentionally. So the first 3 goals are really around external goals. So doing more advocacy work. Every kid in the state should have nutrition education, so we advocate for that. We advocate for SNAP benefits. Expansion, I described some of our satellite training and the healthcare work. Those are all external facing goals. And then internally, we have a culture of evaluation. So really looking at the metrics that matter for the populations that we serve, understanding that, like, for children, it's more about self-efficacy. So how do we design programs and measure them to match, the best research. Diversity, equity, and inclusion has been, as I said, a part of our work since the beginning, but continuing to work across all facets of our organization internally. And then, of course, every strategic plan needs a sustainability plan. So we have a pretty diverse revenue stream, about 30% foundation, 30% individual, 25% earned revenue, 10% corporate, and about 5% government. So we've been able to withstand some of the recent pressures, because when one thing doesn't work, we just go another way, essentially. And that's how we've always run the organization, essentially making sure that we don't have all our eggs in one basket. And I think that is what I wanted to share overall, and then would love to hear what questions that brings up for you, or what else you want to learn more about. Thank you.
I have a question, if I may. With the current COVID outbreak, you must have found some opportunities and some difficulties. Can you refer a little bit to the opportunities and to the difficulties?
Yes, thank you. Yes, it's been a very interesting time. I think we're taking overall the philosophy of out of adversity, come new ideas and necessary innovation, because you have to. And sometimes, change is slower when you don't have to change. So I'd say starting with the opportunities, we've taken up some work around food rescue in particular, because there is a lot of, in addition to all the great work the Food Bank of Mid-Ohio Food Collective is doing, there's a lot more food coming through our community. So we're helping get out about 2.5 million pounds of food, on an annual basis now, which is something that we weren't doing before by partnering with Food Rescue Columbus and a woman named the Food Soldier to kind of distribute those USDA boxes that are coming through our community right now. And that will go on through the end of the year. Definitely with the Veggie Van, we didn't have online sales before. The Veggie Van is essentially a mobile farmer's market, and we really had a community feeling about that. And I think as every farmer's market's learned, you really need to have an online system. It does actually increase sales, and it's also, of course, in this time, a really safe approach to working in the essential service of the grocery business. So I'm really grateful because our team was hesitant to do that, and this just pushed us to get that going. That was another opportunity. To go virtual was an opportunity. It's another area where we knew we could only reach so many people, but we were kind of stuck in our mindset of this work has to be hands-on. You can't really do education online if people need to cook together, and we have found that we were able to break through that as well in very meaningful ways. And then probably the biggest challenge, aside from funding and kind of the corporate kind of, sort of decline in revenue so far, I would say that it's really challenging for us not to be in the schools, because we would teach in person, close to 60 classes a week. And that's across all ages. But just the being with our students, being with families, being just in community is a really difficult shift, and one that we know is not going to change anytime soon. So that's been a challenge. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
I have a question. David Hansen here. Michelle, I was wondering about your sources of funding. Also, given now the increase in demand for food, for example, food assistance, et cetera, what are your current sources of funding, and what might you see as other opportunities in the future to support your ongoing operations?
Yeah, it's, so the pie is, like I said, kind of 30% individual, 30% foundation, 25 earned, and 10 corporate, 5 government. Actually, government, we previously had very little government support, and as we have increased, as our reputation has improved, sort of people get to know us in Columbus and Franklin County, that has been a little bit more of a reliable source for us, which I think is important. We're not going to be overly reliant on government funding, but clearly in terms of a necessary charitable response, we need the government support, to back up what we're trying to bring from a community development point of view into neighborhoods. So I hope that that's going to continue. I hope that there'll be some additional CARES funding that we'll get coming up here in a month. So keep your fingers crossed, because I know they had about 90 million in requests for $25 million. So that's a big one. I think the earned revenue is going to be a challenge for us, because we were paid essentially by corporations and hospital system to do in-person programming. So we're seeing some of that drop off. We're seeing an increase in our grocery sales essentially, because if you think about like the food bank as sort of where people get free food, we're kind of filling some of that space of, we know people have food dollars to spend, and we want them to be able to stretch it. So when SNAP customers shop at the Veggie Van, they get a dollar for dollar match on their purchases. So not only is it already affordable, it just really helps them stretch that dollar. And so we see that market space as something that no one else is filling in our community, and that we hope that we can continue to grow that infrastructure, get another van and really increase that service for the people who do have dollars to spend, in the marketplace and want a safe, reliable place to spend them. Other than that, I think we'll hope that our individual contributions will increase as community members just find out about what we're doing. And because, as you probably all know, most organizations rely a lot more on individual contributions unless they're government funded. So we have room to grow with our network there.
Any other questions?
Michelle, Joe Patchen here. Are there opportunities for online classes that any of the folks attending today might be able to look into? How would they see them?
Yeah, we haven't started doing general admission open classes. We've been working to book kind of private classes so that we can make sure we're able to, if necessary, get food to people. We do have our Harvest Ball coming up, which is a grand opportunity to cook with us, September 25th. It is a fundraiser, so it's a ticketed event. That's on our website. And then I think after that, we'll start to have just more opportunity for community classes. We have volunteer opportunities and some remote opportunities in that realm. So we have a really robust volunteer program, and it's really easy to get involved. We do orientation twice a month, so I can send that link. But if you go to our website and just click on the volunteer tab, you essentially create an account, and then you'll get notice of orientation. That'll be the first notice that you get. And it's a great way to find out more about what we're doing and then see where you might want to get engaged. We will have probably some, food packing opportunities. We provide, like I said, sort of spice bundles for our families. So there's ways that you could probably take some of that home or kind of work, on your own in our space without a group of volunteers. So there's a lot of safe ways to come out and do that. But in terms of, you can't be in class with us per se, but we do have a lot of videos online. So every week there's a cook along. If you're following us, the best places are Facebook and Instagram. So we always sample that meal kit I talked about. Last week was like a noodles and peanut sauce. This week is pancakes. We do pizza meal kits. And you can all order that from the Veggie Vat as well. Like this is a place where everybody should shop. And like I said, if you're a SNAP customer, your dollar goes further. But really our idea is that, this is a place for everyone to shop. So as long as you can get to a convenient location, you can order online. It's really easy. And we have staple goods, like I said. So it's not just a farmer's market. It's rice, it's beans. So I would encourage you to use that resource and pick up food with us. And then, follow those quick videos that happen weekly so you can, make those meals, you'll get the recipe and all of that. So that's probably the best way to kind of feel what it's like to interact with the work.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
Michelle, I'm a vegan, and so I depend on produce a great deal. And I've noticed it's been a horrible increase in most market produce. What are some of the root causes for that right now?
So are you talking about sort of higher costs at the farmer's market and the grocery store?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think it's really interesting. I mean, if you go to the history of sort of how we got here, and I'll do this quickly. I think we're good on time, but I won't take too long. In terms of like food being inexpensive, as you probably all know, sort of the early days of surplus and, prior to World War II and post, in terms of just needing to have, enough calories to feed our communities. We really, we kind of over corrected, I think, on the cheap food type of thing in terms of, what we incentivize and sort of how our food system works. So, for example, we don't grow enough fruits and vegetables to really match what we ask people to eat in a given day. We're more growing food, like the Department of Ag is essentially the Department of Corn and Soy, for what it's worth. Like Ohio, our largest business, is ag, but it's generally not like food for consumption. So that's kind of one side of it. It's kind of left us with like cheap calories that are easy and quick. And understandably, I think in terms of like, women coming into the workplace, we needed convenience. So a lot of things kind of contributed to kind of where we are. I always say that if we can afford it, we kind of need to spend, those of us who can need to spend a little more on our food, because like anything else, you don't buy sort of the cheapest clothes, you know it's not going to last, you know it's not going to be good for your body or environment. So I think there's, on the one hand, an important, you know, putting your values, your dollars where your values are. But on the other hand, I think there's also obviously that issue of if local growers aren't able to scale, their food's going to be more expensive, and there's only so far people are going to be willing to go in that realm. So I think everybody has to make those choices. And if you shop Veggie Van, we're growing a lot of our food, and like I said, the prices are super reasonable. So it's kind of, you get both the local food and the affordable food options there. But I think the way we got here is essentially, A, we're not really valuing our food overall as a society, and B, right, we're overemphasizing the kind of cheap calories, and kind of paying in other ways for that choice. So we, you know, we don't advocate one, like I said, one diet, but I think, you know, if people are going to eat more vegetables, they do need to be more accessible. We also tell people that, you know, you can buy fresh, frozen, and canned interchangeably in terms of price. You know, in terms of price, like that's a way to offset that, but it's also a perfectly acceptable and convenient way to access nutritious food for yourself.
So are you saying to some degree, as we switch and do what we're being told we should be eating more fruits and vegetables, that really those are not available, and that has driven up the price to some degree? Is that some of the underlying message?
Yeah, I think if we, you know, on the federal level, if we change some of our, you know, incentives for farmers and kind of what we're asking them to grow and what we're subsidizing them to grow in terms of also just crop insurance and all of that policy. But I also think on the consumer side, if we start purchasing more farmers in our communities are going to want to grow that food for us, so that should help on the sort of supply end of it as well. But yeah, I mean, it's not a great place to be. But individuals, I'd say, still have good ways to navigate. You know, you just have to not be a purist one way or the other, I think, and kind of do what makes sense for you, but be thoughtful.
Michelle, can you hear me?
Yes, Bonnie.
You said there were 5 locations where the Veggie Van goes. Where do they go the same 5 week after week? Where are those?
Yes, they do. So we are looking to have, you know, consistent access wherever we are. We do make seasonal shifts. So in September, like 2 times a year, we're going to shift some locations to bring in new partners. But whenever we're in season, we're at the same location for 3 hours a day. So currently, that is Equitas Health Centers on Fridays. I don't know why I'm starting Friday, but Friday, I guess because we're getting closer to that day of the week. And that's downtown in the King Lincoln District. We're at the East Side Health Center on Thursdays, so that's where we'll be tomorrow in the afternoon. And then on Sunday, we're at Bible Way Church on the west side. Tuesday, we're at Trio Pharmacy in Linden. And Wednesday, we're at Rosewind Apartments, which is a Columbus Metropolitan Housing Authority development. So those are the current sites. We're also part of a University at Buffalo study that we have a couple of sites that are kind of in test, and that includes New Salem Baptist Church and a couple of schools that, of course, are on hold right now until there are people there to get the food. So yes, look online and please order food. Like, even if you just are curious about what this looks like, I would love for you all to give it a shot.
Are there any other questions?
Michelle, this is Tom. Could you tell us how you partner with the Worthington Resource Pantry?
Yeah, we haven't done a lot recently, but I've known some of the folks who've worked there. I'd say in general with pantries, what we'll tend to do is help partner with education. So a lot of pantries will say, we don't necessarily have a program, but we want to teach people how to make like one pot meals. So we'll come in and help also get pantry set up to engage their volunteers kind of in that satellite way. If you don't have currently a rotation of volunteers who do cooking demos, we can train pantries to do that work. Other than that, it's, sometimes in a planning, we help with some planning, but usually it'll be with curriculum in terms of our pantry relationship, since we're not necessarily distributing food. I'm trying to remember, is the woman who was at Worthington Pantry now at Lucent Social Services? Or am I confusing her with someone?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Nick Lincoln Hooker. Yeah.
Her name is escaping me, but I keep in close contact with her because I want to make sure that we know, right, what's going on, with those systems as well.
Okay.
Jennifer Freilich.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Any others? Well, thank you, Michelle. I think as we go through this time period, it becomes a great challenge for a lot of the low-income families to just be able to meet their nutritional needs. And some of your creative work is certainly helpful to those families. And your educational work is very helpful to them to reorient what food they choose. So thank you for coming today. We appreciate it. And continue your important work.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here with you.
Good. Next week's speaker is someone that's close to me. He's my son. It's Dr. Dane D'Alessandro, who will be presenting on his research into the 5 banks that failed in 2008 and how their organizational processes led to that failure and what organizations can do to prevent it. So he is the Vice President of Organizational Change for TD Bank and serves within their organization to work on how they can shift, and especially in this time, in challenging times. So hopefully you'll come to that presentation next week. So now is our time for a 4-way test. But before I do that, I'll ask that if you are so interested, please stick around after the meeting to talk, socialize, ask any questions that you may of each other, and it's an opportunity for us to try to replace to some degree the face-to-face community we all appreciate. The 4-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First,
is it the truth?
Second, is it fair
to all concerned?
Third, will it
build
goodwill,
friendships?
And fourth,
will it be beneficial?
So again, thank you for attending the formal meeting. We'll now kind of break into, for many of you that may have to go on to work or other activities, please feel free to check out. But if you want to stick around and talk to other members, feel welcome to stay.